Machiavelli and modern political theory. Niccolo Machiavelli has been considered by many scholars as the founder of modern political science. Machiavelli is frequently identified as the founder of modern political science, a break from the classical political theory and political science represented by Aristotle. This assessment rests on several key innovations. First, Machiavelli established politics as an autonomous sphere of human activity with its own principles and rationality, distinct from Christian morality, law, or even philosophy. Before Machiavelli, politics was typically understood as subordinate to ethics, natural law, or religious principles. Machiavelli insisted that politics must be understood on its own terms, according to its own logic. Second, Machiavelli pioneered an empirical and realistic approach to political analysis. Rather than starting from theoretical principles about how things should be, he examined history and contemporary politics to understand how they actually operate. His method involves accumulating examples and deriving general principles from observable patterns found in history. Third, Machiavelli rejected utopianism and idealism. He explicitly criticized the imaginary republics and principalities of Plato and other philosophers. Perfect systems that had never existed and never could exist. Instead, he sought the effectual truth, understanding of what actually produces results in the world as it is. When it comes to Machiavelli's influence on realism and the so-called realpolitik, Machiavelli's most direct influence on modern political thought appears in the tradition of political realism, particularly in international relations theory. The concept of realpolitik, pragmatic politics based on power and national interest rather than moral or ideological concerns. It draws directly from Machiavellian principles. Realism in international relations emphasizes that states are the primary actors in world politics, that states pursue their national interest, and that power is the central currency of international relations. This perspective, which has dominated modern international relations theory, can trace its intellectual lineage back to Machiavelli's insistence that political analysis must focus on what states actually do, pursuing power and security, rather than on ideals of universal law or common humanity. Machiavelli also influenced republicanism in the contemporary political theory. Paradoxically, given his reputation for promoting tyranny, Machiavelli has also significantly influenced Republican theory. The discourse's sophisticated analysis of civic virtue, the conditions for maintaining Republican liberty, and the dangers of corruption have inspired a generation of neo-Roman political theorists. Scholars like Philip Pettit, Kenton Skinner, and Mauricio Virelli. This new Roman republicanism emphasizes freedom as non-domination rather than mere non-interference. It values republican institutions not primarily as expressions of individual rights, but as necessary to prevent tyranny and preserve collective liberty. This interpretation finds support in Machiavelli's insistence on the importance of civic engagement, participation in government, and the constant vigilance necessary to preserve freedom against the inevitable forces of corruption. When it comes to questions of liberalism, scholars have debated whether Machiavelli was a proto-liberal thinker or a critic of liberalism. Some argue that Machiavelli anticipated several key features of modern liberal thought. His insistence on realistic assessment of human nature, his rejection of utopian schemes, and his emphasis on individual liberty, well, at least among the three, anticipate aspects of liberal political theory. Others stress that Machiavelli's emphasis on civic virtue, the common good, and republican collective action fundamentally differs from liberal individualism. While Machiavelli recognizes self-interest as a driving force in human behavior, he does not make individual rights the foundation of political organization as liberals do. Instead, he seeks to establish institutions that can channel human self-interest toward the promotion of the common good. The problem of means and ends. Machiavelli's treatment of the relationship between means and ends has influenced modern discussions of ethics and political morality. The popular phrase, the end justifies the means, though never exactly stated in Machiavelli's works, captures a widely shared impression of his position. Yet, as contemporary Machiavelli scholars would argue, Machiavelli's actual position is more subtle. He does not argue that any means are justified by any end. Rather, he recognizes that in certain circumstances, particularly involving considerations of moral restraint, may have to yield. Different spheres of human morality, civic virtue, operate according to different principles. This insight has proven influential in contemporary debates about moral relativism, the limits of moral principles, and the conditions under which conventional morality may appropriately be suspended. While Machiavelli's conclusions remain controversial, his framing of the problem has become central to modern and moral political philosophy. What about realism and romanticism? Finally, Machiavelli represents a particular tension in modern political thought. The tension between realism and romanticism, between the world as it is and the world as we hope it could be. The prince's hard-nosed analysis of power and necessity stands in permanent tension with the discourses, hopeful vision of republics This tension reflects a fundamental problem of political life. The conflict between effectiveness and idealism, between doing what is necessary and what is right. Machiavelli refuses to dissolve this tension through a sleight of hand. He will not argue that he faced the problem directly, understanding both the requirements of political success and the moral cost of meeting those requirements. So, as conclusions to these lectures on mind regarding the political philosophy of Niccolo Machiavelli, Niccolo Machiavelli stands at the threshold of modern political thought. His life bridged the medieval and early modern works. His thought anticipated many of the central themes that would preoccupy later theorists. Whether celebrated as the founder of political realism or condemned as the intellectual progenitor of amoral power seeking, Machiavelli's influence on subsequent political theory has proven immense and enduring. What makes Machiavelli essential to study is not that we should embrace his conclusions uncritically. Rather, Machiavelli poses fundamental questions that resist easy solutions. What is the relationship between morality and politics? Under what circumstances, if any, might the demands of political necessity override moral principles? Can a political system be both effective and just? How should we understand the nature of human beings and the possibilities for human improvement through institutional design? These questions remain central to contemporary political debate. In our own time, when political leaders regularly confront choices between moral principles and practical necessity, Machiavelli's unblinking analysis offers a necessary corrective to naive idealism. At the same time, his passionate republicanism and hope for political greatness remind us that realism need not entail cynicism or the abandonment of justice as a political goal. The measure of Machiavelli's importance is not that he solved the problems of political theory, but that he posed them with such clarity and force that subsequent thinkers could not avoid them. In this sense, Machiavelli's work remains perpetually contemporary, speaking to the permanent human problems of political life.